So at this point, you've done some of the basic types of genetic crosses, and we're going to start to look at some of the more unique crosses that can happen, some of the exceptions to the rules. And one of those is sex-linked traits. So these are traits that are specifically linked on the X chromosome. All the other genes that we've looked at so far are all linked on chromosomes 1 through 44. They're not on the X and Y chromosomes, and so all the other traits we've looked at already apply equally to men and women. In the early 1900s, a scientist named Thomas Hunt Morgan was studying traits in fruit flies, and he realized that the ratios that he expected to see were not the ratios that he was actually seeing in these fruit flies. And what he realized through his research was that the traits must have been linked onto the X chromosome. Now, because men have one X chromosome and women have two X chromosomes, we see different ratios in males than in females with sex-linked traits. And this is why Thomas Hunt Morgan was seeing some unexpected data in his research. So what we'll have is a trait, in this case eye color, red eyes or white eyes in flies, and the trait will actually literally be linked onto the X chromosomes. So a female with red eyes could be XR or X big R, X little r. A female with white eyes would be X little r, X little r. And you can see actually here the white eyes in the fly or the red eyes in the fly. A male, now you have to be careful, that only has one X chromosome that has red eyes will be X big RY or X little ry. We don't have a heterozygous individual for males. Now, because of this, we have a unique vocabulary term that applies only really to sex-linked traits, and that is called a carrier female. A carrier female is a female who has a recessive allele but doesn't have the recessive phenotype. In other words, a carrier female is always the heterozygous female. A male can't be a carrier because they can't be heterozygous, because the trait's only linked on the X chromosome and they only have one. Now in this case, being a carrier female and carrying a white allele for white eyes while having red eyes isn't a big deal. But a lot of the sex-linked traits are actually linked to disorders or diseases. And in that case, it does become a more important thing to look at, because a female who is normal and healthy may carry a trait that she may pass on to her children. And that's why we have that term carrier female. So let's try a Punnett square with this. A woman is heterozygous for hemophilia, which is a sex-linked trait. So let's make a key. Now sometimes with these it doesn't specifically state, and if it doesn't specifically state, we'll always assume that the normal condition is dominant and that the disorder, hemophilia, is recessive. In rare instances, the disorder may be dominant, but the problem would tell you that. So a woman is heterozygous for hemophilia. So the first thing we do is put two X chromosomes for the woman, and we know heterozygous means different, so we will link a big H on one and a little h on the other. That woman marries a normal male, XY for male, and normal big H. Now remember, we only link on the X chromosome, so we don't put anything on the Y. So the first part says, what are these persons' genotypes? So we've answered that. And then it says, can they have male children with hemophilia? How about female children with the disease? So we'll do a Punnett square. Now we only need a 4-box Punnett square because this is not two separate genes like our dihybrid crosses. This is just one gene. It happens to be linked to the sex chromosomes. So when we put it on the Punnett square, we leave them linked. X big H, X little h, X big H, Y. And we fill it in. X big H, X big H, X big H, Y, big H, X little h, Y. Now when you're reading this Punnett square, you just have to be careful to remember that these two boxes are males and these two boxes are females. So the problem says, can they have male children with hemophilia? And the answer to that, we look, is a healthy and a hemophilia son. So the first question, males, yes, can have hemophilia, X little h, Y. The second question asks, can their daughters have hemophilia? And when we look, they have one normal daughter and one carrier daughter, but neither would have hemophilia, so this couple could have no daughters with the disease. So we circle our answers. Let's try another one. Baldness is a recessive sex-linked trait. So big B will be normal hair, and little b will be bald. Cross a carrier female with a bald male. So again, let's remember to put XX for our female, and she's a carrier, which we know means heterozygous, with a bald male, so XY for a male, and a little b because he's bald. So now we do our Punnett square, leaving those traits linked, X big B, X little b, Y, and we fill in our Punnett square. So question A asks, what percent of their daughters will be bald? Now again, be very careful when counting sex-linked problems. Only these two boxes are daughters. This daughter will have normal hair. This daughter will be bald. And so 1 out of 2 is 50%. B asks, what percent of their children will be bald? Now in this case, since it's all children, we have 4 boxes. 1 bald daughter, 1 bald son, 2 out of 4 is 50%.